The humid air of August 1st, 1943, hung heavy over the lobby of Harlem's Braddock Hotel, a place where jazz and tension often shared the same space. When a dispute over a hotel room bill escalated, a woman named Margie was being led away in handcuffs by a white police officer. Suddenly, a young black soldier in uniform, Robert Bandy, stepped forward to challenge the treatment of the woman, his presence a stark reminder of the democracy he was fighting for abroad, but being denied at home. In the chaotic moments that followed, a single gunshot rang out, striking Bandy and igniting a powder keg of racial frustration that had been simmering in New York City for decades. Before we dive deeper into the chaos that consumed the streets of Harlem that night, remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime. Your support helps us bring these forgotten moments of history back to life. To understand why a single arrest could set an entire city neighborhood on fire, one must look at the Harlem of the early 1940s. While the United States was embroiled in World War II, fighting for freedom across the globe, the Black community in Harlem was living in a different reality. Crowded into dilapidated tenements and facing skyrocketing rents and food prices, the residents were squeezed by a system that demanded their labor and their lives for the war effort, but offered little in return. The promise of the Double V campaign, victory over fascism abroad, and victory over racism at home, felt like a cruel joke as Jim Crow laws and police brutality remained the standard. The Braddock Hotel was a microcosm of this tension, a popular spot for celebrities and soldiers alike, but always under the watchful eye of a police force that many residents viewed as an occupying army. When Officer James Collins attempted to arrest Margie for disorderly conduct, he wasn't just arresting a woman. He was lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. Robert Bandy, accompanied by his mother, saw the officer's aggression and intervened, leading to a physical struggle. In the scuffle, Bandy allegedly took the officer's nightstick and hit him, prompting Collins to draw his service revolver and fire, hitting the soldier in the shoulder. Bandy was taken to Sydenham Hospital, but the truth of his condition was quickly overtaken by a far more lethal force: the rumor. As crowds gathered outside the hotel and the hospital, the story morphed and grew wings, spreading through the streets like a wildfire. The word on the street was that a black soldier had been shot in the back and killed by a white cop while defending a woman. In a community already grieving the loss of sons and brothers in a segregated military, the idea of a soldier being murdered on home soil by the very authorities he served was the final breaking point. By late evening, the windows of white-owned businesses along 125th Street began to shatter. What started as a protest quickly transformed into a full-scale uprising, with thousands of people pouring into the streets to vent their rage. Looting became widespread, but it was targeted. Shops that had long overcharged Harlem residents or refused to hire them were the primary focus. Food, clothing, and furniture were hauled out into the night air as the sound of breaking glass provided a rhythmic backdrop to the shouts of a community that felt it had nothing left to lose. The police response was swift and massive, with thousands of officers and members of the New York Guard mobilized to contain the unrest. Mayor Fiorello Guardia, realizing the gravity of the situation, took to the radio airwaves to plead for calm, emphasizing that the soldier, Robert Bandy, was alive and expected to recover. He walked the streets himself, flanked by Black community leaders, trying to bridge the gap between a terrified city administration and a furious populace. Yet, despite his efforts, the violence continued through the night, leaving a trail of smoke and devastation in its wake. When the sun rose on August 2nd, the physical toll of the riot was laid bare for all to see. 6 people were dead, all of them Black, and over 500 had been injured in the clashes. The streets were littered with debris, and the economic heart of Harlem was in ruins, with property damage estimated at $5 million, a staggering sum for the time. Over 600 people were behind bars, and the military presence on the street corners served as a grim reminder of how quickly the social fabric of the city could unravel. In the aftermath, the official reports and the media often focused on the looting and the criminal nature of the rioters, but the underlying causes were impossible to ignore. A commission appointed by the mayor eventually pointed to the systemic issues of poor housing, unemployment, and the persistent sting of racial discrimination as the true culprits. The 1943 riot wasn't just a spontaneous outburst of violence. It was a desperate cry for recognition from a people who were tired of being treated as second-class citizens in their own country. Today, the 1943 Harlem Race Riot stands as a pivotal moment in the long struggle for civil rights, a precursor to the larger movements that would sweep the nation in the decades to follow. It reminds us that peace is not merely the absence of tension, but the presence of justice. As we look back on those 2 days of fire and fury, we see the faces of people like Robert Bandy and Margie, whose names might have been lost to time if not for the explosion of history they inadvertently triggered. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.